It's the simple thing for Mark Carney to do is get out of the way. Get out of the way.
Leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, goes directly after Mark Carney and his horrible economic policies. Welcome back to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. On the same day that Danielle Smith decides to call the bluff of Mark Carney and the Liberal government, Pierre Poilievre comes out in defense of the development of the West and of our natural resources. Of course, here at the Canadian Shield, we also believe in the development of our natural resources for the prosperity of Canadians, new or long-standing. Something tells me that the Liberal government will not be so enthusiastic, and they are currently, right now, as we speak, I bet you, trying to find 1,000 excuses why they won't do what needs to be done, but it somehow will not be their fault. Before we get into it, I would encourage all of you to share this channel with your socials, and I would encourage all of you that are subscribed to double check that you're subscribed, because I'm getting a lot of comments that people are being unsubscribed. Okay, let's check it out. We're going to open with a study from the Fraser Report that talked about economic freedom. It says economic freedom is declining in Canada. Economic Freedom of the World Report 2025 annually. The index published in the Economic Freedom of the World 2025 measure the degree to which people in 165 jurisdictions around the globe are allowed to make their own economic choices. Now, I'm not going to read the whole report, but I am going to take a little bit of the bullet points of the summary out. The standard of living for most economically free nations is far higher than the least free. In comparing the economically freest 25% of countries with the least free, we find. So the 25% wealthiest versus the 25% poorest, here are some differences. The average income is 6.2% higher. The bottom 10% of income are 7.8% greater, meaning the people that earn the least in Canada are almost 8 times more than what they earn in one of the poorest countries. People tend to work 7 fewer hours a week. People live about 17 years longer. Far fewer children pass in infancy. People are more satisfied with their lives. Governments are less corrupt, and the environment is cleaner. 2 of those things there are very significant to the story that we hear coming out of the eco-mentalists, right? Because they want to do everything for the children, right? They say, well, no. If you live poor, if you don't touch any of your natural resources and just sacrifice all of the luxuries the world is about, somehow your children are going to do better. And the environment's going to be cleaner. But it turns out that when you don't have economic prosperity, your children don't do better. And the environment isn't cleaner. Because lo and behold, shock of all shocks, when you're worried about where your next meal is coming from, the last thing you're concerned about is what's going on with the air. So let's remember that out there, anybody that's listening to my voice that's not completely sold on the foolishness of the carbon zealotry of the eco-mentalism. Let's try to put it in perspective that when we have resources, when we have the time to look around us, when we have the time to care about what's happening to the world as opposed to just our narrow little focus of hunger, that's when we can do the best. So having money in everybody's pocket is way better than not.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I'm responding today to the news that Premier Danielle Smith has been forced to set up a government corporation to build a pipeline because Mark Carney and the Liberals have scared away all of the private businesses that normally build pipelines with their own money. While Canadian pipeline company Enbridge builds 2 pipelines in the United States of America, and TransCanada Pipelines is investing $8.5 billion building projects, again in the United States of America.
I understand anybody that's out there that might be critical of the conservative idea to let's get things up and running. Those guys are not spending billions of dollars on anything other than labor. I mean, it's labor to build the machinery. It's labor to put the machinery in place. It's labor to clear the land. It's labor to get the pipe. It's labor to weld the pipe. It's labor, right? I mean, yeah, okay, there might be some materials, but for the most part, it's paying people lots of money to do the job for long periods of time. And that is the kind of money that Canada is passing up on. $8 billion would go a long way to helping our GDP or our standard of living to improve.
and Imperial Oil shuts down its Calgary office, killing 900 jobs, no major private company is willing to build pipelines to ship oil under this Liberal government in Canada.
I mean, it's called Imperial Oil, probably was founded in Canada.
Why? Because Carney and the Liberals have kept in place their laws that ban increased production, pipeline construction, and shipping of oil off the northwest BC coast. These projects should be built by private investors because they are wildly profitable. They should be money-making projects for both the industry and paying taxes into the government. Instead, after a decade of Liberals and under the weak, incompetent leadership of Mark Carney, business is losing money and taxpayers have to bail them out.
So rather than have somebody come up and say, look at all the oil in the ground, we could invest in this pipeline and make a lot of money, which is what people do. It's like, we can't make any money, so we're not going to invest it at all. And anytime we try to make any money, the government is going to be right there with their hands in our pockets, causing all kinds of grief and aggravation. And this has impacted business in Canada so much that we are bailing out our businesses that are struggling to get by. I mean, it's only a minute until they can move south and start to function again down in the United States.
It's the simple thing for Mark Carney to do is get out of the way.
Now, I don't want to take credit for him saying that slogan, but I agree with him 100%. I've been saying it on this channel all summer long.
Get out of the way.
Move it.
That is literally the only thing Mark Carney needs to do to get pipelines built in Canada. I'm going to say that one more time because we have massively overcomplicated this. Mark Carney needs to do one thing for pipelines to get built. Get out of the way.
Get out of the way.
We have trillions of dollars of investment that is waiting to build resource projects in Canada. We have more workers than jobs who are happy to do the work. We have businesses headquartered right in Calgary, Alberta, that have been building pipelines for literally a century. All they need is permission. Who is denying that permission? The federal government. Hence, get out of the way. Let our pipeliners build pipelines.
Last question. How do you explain to the voters in BC, many of whom are not in favor of having a pipeline go through their province? How do you convince them that this is a good thing?
Well, British Columbians support pipelines, overwhelmingly, yes.
All of the numbers that I've seen, except for maybe the city of Vancouver, everybody else supports pipelines. I mean, who doesn't want a decent job?
British Columbians want pipelines built. It's Liberals that are standing in the way. Liberals are blocking pipelines. The only thing standing between a pipeline that starts in Hardisty, Alberta, and ends in the northwest BC coast is Mark Carney and the Liberals. It's the Liberal shipping ban that blocks shipping of oil off the west coast. It's the Liberal pipeline ban and C-69. It's the Liberal production cap that bans the industry from producing enough oil to put in the pipe. So when the federal government bans Albertans from producing enough oil to put in the pipe, and then bans British Columbians from shipping it out of the pipe, then obviously no private industry is going to want to build such a pipe. If Mark Carney and the Liberals were to do what I say, get out of the way, then we could get a pipeline that would create jobs for British Columbia steel workers, Indigenous people all across northwestern BC, and across the beautiful prairies of our country. This is an incredible opportunity. I hope that it's a pipeline that ships 1 million barrels a day. All we need is for Mark Carney to get out of the way.
Get out of the way, Carney. That's all you got to do. You know what? I think it's probably best that you should just resign, and that would be the best way to solve this problem. You just resign and tell yourself that I'm going to go count my money somewhere, and then the rest of Canada can get down to business because we want to work. People want to have industries that are coming through their region. You can't for one second believe that there isn't First Nation businesses that will be positively impacted by a massive infusion of money onto their reservation or to the township that they happen to be having their business in. The same holds true for any number of people in towns and regions we could list off between even Alberta and British Columbia. I think that we need to appreciate that the only thing stopping it is, as you heard, Bill C-48, which is the tanker ban, this Bill C-69, which is the pipeline ban, and then what's called the production cap, or what the Liberals are calling the emissions cap. All of those things are just three of there's 9 actual pieces of legislation that can cause a lot of problems. But if we can get those 3 out of the way, we can actually start to put stuff in the ground, and we will get an infusion, a massive, massive billions of dollars of investment from oil companies. They're right now currently based in Texas because of the policies of the Liberal government. They'll come up here with surveyors tailing them, looking for places they can put the pipe down, looking for ways that they can get the oil out of the ground and off to the markets that are all sitting around with gigantic barrels empty, waiting for every drop of oil they can take or every drop of natural gas they can take. No matter where you stand on the ideological spectrum, I just don't understand why you would think in your mind poverty is the way to solve the problems of the environment or of the planet in which we live on. Here's a snippet of the announcement that Danielle Smith made that Pierre Poilievre was referring to.
Beneath our feet here in Alberta, we stand on oil reserves valued at over $9 trillion. This resource wealth presents Canada and Canadians with boundless opportunities. This wealth would equate to hundreds of billions of dollars in government revenue that could be used to support core social programs like healthcare and education, bolster Canada's national security commitments under NATO, and unlock economic prosperity for Indigenous people.
I believe that when she says the $9 trillion, she's only referring to what they know they can get out of the ground. There's more. There's another 85% or something that they don't feel that with current technology they can get out of the ground. That's not covering what might be in different regions of the country, like in Quebec or Northern Ontario or offshore in Nova Scotia. That's just the Alberta, the basin that's essentially sitting under Alberta, parts of Saskatchewan, and parts of British Columbia. And $9 trillion is an enormous amount of money. It's a super duper amount of jobs, good quality blue collar jobs. It is prosperity for countries that living in the third world are just on the cusp. It's economic safety and security for their children. It's economic safety and security in their hospitals. It's innovation. It is so many positive things for this earth. And who's in the way of that? Who's blocking that? Mark Carney, Stephen Guilbeault, MP de Bruzen. The Liberal Party in as a whole is standing in the way of all of this progress and standing in the way of all of this development and standing in the way of all of this prosperity and all of this improvement in the standard of living for not just Canadians, but other countries in Asia, other countries in South Pacific. And that's just talking about when we're looking at the one pipelines or the pipelines getting into the British Columbia. Never mind the safety and security it provides for people in Europe, the safety and security it will provide for the people in all aspects of the world. It's $9 trillion that she knows she can get out without talking about the gold, the nickel, the silver, all of the other resources that are available through development, through exploration. And you want me to believe that the First Nations want you to leave it in the ground? I don't think so for one second. I believe the First Nations is quite happy to get all of the money that is their fair share, no problem at all. Not to mention the jobs that they would get from that exact same development. Of course, Mark Carney, ideologically opposed. Mark Carney owns a lot of pipelines and flies private jets. So when I say ideologically opposed, what I mean is he's telling you he's ideologically opposed because he wants absolute control of that. I did a report just the other day when he was talking to the UN. What he's actually after is power, not saving the planet. That's just something he's telling you, because that way there he can pull on your heartstrings and try to convince you to support his ideas. His ideas that are leaving $9 trillion in the ground while he himself invests in pipeline in Brazil and pipelines in the States and even in pipelines in Canada. While he himself tries to convince the world that we should, or Canada, that we should all go high density, never ever owning anything of our own, never ever having a backyard to make a barbecue, never ever having a driveway to shoot the puck at the kids, none of that stuff. It's all gone under the vision of Mark Carney and Stephen Guilbeault and MP de Bruzen and all of the ones that come along with that. $9 trillion. All the while Canada's food prices shoot up. Canada's economy rockets downward, tumbles down into the ravine. All of our standard of living plummets. All of the resources, all of the social programs that we rely on are getting cut. Everybody is struggling to find a doctor, struggling to get around. There's no infrastructure. There's no decent jobs. Young men under the age of 35 are feeling hopeless. They don't really see a future at all. There's no way in the world that they can ever provide for a family, let alone provide for themselves. All because Mark Carney thinks that we should stop living in the modern age and just go shooting backwards to the caveman era. Not him, just the rest of us. I picked up another report from the Fraser Institute. Canadians responsible for $2.3 trillion in government debt. I'll say that number again. $2.3 trillion in government debt. Now, before I tell you a couple things out of this article, I just feel like I should put trillion in maybe a way that you can understand. So you got $1, and then you got $1,000. Excellent, right? Then you have 1,000,000 and you have 1,000 millions. Well, 1,000 millions brings you to 1,000,000,000. Another 1,000 billions, 1,000 billions brings you to 1,000,000,000,000. So just imagine in your mind how much money that is. And how our governments combined and all over this nation are $2.3 trillion in debt. We're sitting on $9 trillion worth of fuel, $9 trillion under the Alberta province of Alberta. Nobody's making any money because we're all going into debt, and the government, Mark Carney's government, he doesn't care. He's running it up. He's one of the biggest guys throwing the tab up, throwing the fuel on the fire. Apparently, he's thrown on huge wads of cash. Like, I mean, he'd rather burn the cash than he would have burned the oil. $2.3 trillion in debt, and we sit on all of these natural resources, and we have terrible schools and hospitals and all. And I don't mean to pick on the people that work in those places. I'm saying to you that the government doesn't provide for those regions, those things that are solely the government's responsibility. We're this much money in debt, and we still don't have decent services. We still don't have all of the basics that we require: housing, inexpensive food, excellent schools, and excellent hospitals, or at least hospitals that aren't or understaffed and everybody running ragged. I mean, let's think about how sustainable is that for the people that are running those jobs? How long can you actually look after 10 times the amount of people that you are trained to look after? I mean, they're only human. I get that they're doing their best, but I think that the government is letting them down as well, including the doctors, including the technicians, and absolutely including the frontline staff. So let's wrap our mind around what we could be doing, not being trillions of dollars in debt. Now, there's one little paragraph I want to take out of here because, I mean, the title says for itself. That's a combine between the governments of the provinces and the governments of the federal government. Combined provincial and federal net debt per person ranges from $40,939 in Alberta, 40 G's. That's what you live in Alberta, you listen to my voice right now, you owe $41,000 in debts without worrying about your car payment, your house payment, your credit cards, the wife, none of that stuff. Forget about it. You owe 40 grand to a money lender who lives Lord knows where. To a high of $68,861 in Newfoundland. So you're listening to my voice right now, you're in Newfoundland, you owe nearly 70 G's, to a money lender who lives, I'm not even sure where. I got to tell you, I probably don't have 60 G's that I can spare. Like, I'm pretty sure I'll be straight to your, I don't have it. You're going to have to, I don't know. You know what I heard? I heard that there's some oil out in Alberta. Maybe if we can get out of the ground, I can pay less. I mean, that's an idea. Hey, I heard that there's oil off the Grand Banks in Newfoundland. Maybe we can get some of that out of there and we can all owe less. I mean, that's just an idea. Call me crazy, but it seems that would be a good place to begin rather than looking at me because I ain't got 60 G's to spare. I'm not even sure I got 60 cents to spare if I'm completely candid with you. However, the federal government doesn't really seem to be worried about what I can spare. They just seem to want to be spending, and not caring in the slightest way how it impacts me, you, and our children, and our children's children's children. Because these debts are not easily repaired overnight without the amount of income that we require. It's $2 trillion. Last year, Canada paid $53 billion in interest payments. I looked it up it was like on the World Bank. That is that's more. We paid more in GDP than over 100 countries manufactured in their entire country. We pay, more in taxes on our loans than these countries' GDPs. More than 100 countries have a GDP that is less than $53 billion, and we threw it away as interest. I mean, we could have kept half of it and still given half to any one of these countries, and those countries, I'm sure, would just be living large. But the federal government is not responsible. They're not, they're responsible, but they're not being a responsible government. They're not taking care of the people. They're not taking care of the money because they just simply don't have the desire, or they simply don't have the skill. One way or the other, it's something that Canadians need to be looking at in the stark light of day, as the expression goes, because we need to be looking after ourselves. We need to be looking after our children. That's just my opinion. You can let me know what your opinion is down in the comments. I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.